Hi and welcome to Matchmove For Production by VFX Tutors. I'm Josh and in this video we'll be moving on to shot MM011. What we'll do first is we'll just play through the shot so we can see what we're going to track, then we'll open 3DEqualizer. So we've opened 3DEqualizer, we see what we've got our normal UI here. If we don't have that, you can click on Environments and select Basic. So in this video we'll be going through shot MM011, which is going to be a drone shot. We're going to be treating these next 5 shots as if we have 0 data, because this might be the more likely situation you'll be in doing your own projects. If you don't have any footage, you can buy this from the Gumroad store. If not, you can follow through with your own footage. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll go up to our object browser where our sequence camera is, and over to our right we will go to our browse in our live action footage, and we'll scroll down to our shot that we're going to track. In this case it's MM011. Go to plates and we'll load in our image sequence. Make sure it's in sequence view, otherwise you'll see them all in. It'll only bring in one, so make sure that's highlighted in yellow and click OK. So we've loaded in our image sequence now. You can see it's looking quite dark, so we need to adjust our gamma settings for it. So if we go to the right to our 8-bit color conversion and open that up, we can see that we've got black, white, gamma, soft clip and black, white range. We don't have to worry about anything. All we just need to do is change the gamma to 2.2. So I've already transcoded these plates into a linear color space. So now we've done that, it'll be very difficult to play through the timeline because we need to cache out the image files. But before we do that, we need to save our scene. So if I go to 3D4 down the bottom left and select Save Project As, and what I'll do, I'll just make a new directory and I'll call it 2 under here. And what I'll do, I'll make sure that I save it the same name as the plate so I know what shot this corresponds to. Select OK. Now it's saved. So now we've got to cache out our image sequence. So if we go to playback and select export buffer compression file, this will start exporting our image cache, and this may take a while, so I'll fast forward through this. Okay, so that's now cached out, so our next step would be to go back to playback and import our buffer compression file. That'll be much quicker, and now we can scrub through our timeline really fast. And if you press spacebar, you can play through your image sequence. So this footage was shot on a Mavic Air, so it's not like a production quality drone, it's just a standard commercial drone. And we can go to the website and we can pick up some of the details for this. And this is the sort of details that you'll get for the Mavic Air. Some of the problems that we might get here is it's sensor size quite small, and our 35mm equivalent is 24. So from previous experience tracking these, I'll do something a little bit different than I've usually done. So I'll go over to my lens, and from all the other shots we made sure that we changed our film back height and left this as passive. For now, on these drone shots, I'm going to leave these as they are, because when you import an image sequence in, it actually comes in at the sort of the correct aspect ratio for the sensor size. It may not be the correct sensor size, but the aspect ratio will be pretty correct. So I mostly want to focus on actually the focal length and get that. So I'm going to put in 24 on here, and that's pretty much all I'm going to do for now. And then what I'm going to do is change this actually to classic LD, because we're going to do some lens distortion adjustments on this to get our lens distortion. So I'm going to start by tracking some points. So I'm going to pick some points and hold Control and left click. And we'll create a tracking marker and click Gauge and Track and see how it's slipping off. If I select Center 2D, now we can center our point over our tracking marker. And now we can see that's pretty much pinned to that point. So now we need to go through and just track a lot of points. So Control left click. Making sure that all these tracks are not jumping around or anything. So we'll get a couple on the front of this house. I'm just resizing the tracking boxes so it's a bit more efficient. You want it about 1.5 times the size. So this search box area is. The gauge marker and track. You can see how it's slipping here. So we'll probably have to scrub back before it starts slipping. Adjust it, gauge marker and track again. It's still slipping a little bit, so we'll do it again. We'll just go through and try and get a nice spread of points. Just Control left click to make the point, gauge marker, track. It's coming off a bit, so we'll just readjust the tracking box and the search area, gauge marker and track. Here as well. Because this is kind of position and the shape's changing a lot, we'll just re-gauge it through so it gets to refresh what it's actually tracking. So we've got quite a few on the building. So we need to start tracking with shots like this where it's sort of flying through. We need to make sure that we get quite a decent ground coverage as well. So what we'll do, we'll actually work back on the ground. So I'll go to the last frame, pick this bit here. I'll just adjust my tracking box, gauge marker, track. I'll probably go out of view soon. I can adjust it, see if I can get any more out of it. And end marker. You need to make sure that you always end it when you can't track it anymore. Otherwise it will just keep tracking to nowhere. So we'll track some more stuff backwards quickly. Down here. Just readjust that box. It's slipping off, so we'll just go back to its knot, readjust. Gauge marker and track. So now we'll start doing some from frame 1. Pick some of these obvious points. Just need to make sure that we always end our point. We'll just make sure that we've got quite a good coverage of points. So when this comes out, we want to make sure that we've got some more points here. So I'll just go back and gauge marker and track. And I'll just keep readjusting it, gauging it, so it kind of refreshes the tracking pattern. Make sure I end the point. So I'm going to try and get points that areas that are in, that could be tracked for the longest. Gauge marker, track. Slipping off, so I'll just re-gauge it and track. End point. So let's get one more here. So that's control left click to create a track. Engage marker and track. It's kind of slipping off there. We want to adjust it. We can end that there. So let's get some points on this side now. End the point. White patch here. If you ever get to a point where it doesn't track because the search box is too small, because of the speed it's going at, it can't find it in the search area. So we'll just get some stuff in this background as well. So we just want to make sure that we've got good coverage of points so we can get the best out of the parallax. So if we just select all our points with shift and left click, so we can sort of and scrub through and see where we're tracking, where we might be missing patches. Probably could do with something here, it's a bit dead there. So I'll just come in here and pick some of this greenery. So we'll just select all our points again in our object browser. And we'll just look through and see what our sort of spreader points are. It's pretty good. So we can get some more over here. There's some points over here. So that's Control left click to create a point. Make sure you end them. And we'll just do a couple more back here. It's probably not a good choice because they're splitting apart. Pick something else. Gauge marker and track. And that. Then we can Control left click, make another marker, and go to this point. Gauge marker and track. Stop it. End point. So if we select all our points again, we can see what our sort of spread is. It's a pretty good spread of tracks, so okay. Let's get something over here. Let's get this one last one here. And then cool. So now we'll do, we'll press Alt and C to solve our camera. As you can see, it's brought up this window now that's going to show our camera movement. It's got our keyframes here and all our 2D points that we've tracked in 3D space. So now if we click Use Result, we can see that nothing's really having much because you're in F2, your tracking menu, but if you press F5, you can go into a 3D menu and you can scrub through and you can see what your 3D points are doing. And it looks alright already, but if we look over in our deviation browser at the moment, there's quite a few things going wrong. So if we select deviation browser and go show point deviation curves, active points only, we can see we've got some problems going on here. And this is probably because we don't actually have any distortion solved on our plate yet. So what we'll do first, if we go to our lens, bottom right, and we'll select our focal length and we'll adjust that first. So we've gone to focal length and adjust. So now we go to Windows, Parameter Adjustment window, and it should bring up this parameter adjustment window. And it should have your focal length attribute there. So what we'll do, we'll just change this to adaptive and we'll click adjust. And we'll see what this sort of changes to. I know we're going to try and keep it around 25mm mark, but I think anything around this should be fine for this shot. So now we'll do a resolve with Alt-C. You can see it's not really made much of a difference. So now if we go down to our distortion, we should be in classic LD model and select distortion and quartic and go back to our parameter adjustment window. It should now be in our parameter adjustment. So if we turn off our focal length and turn off our quartic distortion, we don't want to be solving all of this together because that's when things start to go a bit funky. So if we do them one at a time on adaptive and click adjust, and you can see our deviation start to get a little bit lower here. We'll transfer the parameters. We'll do Alt-C again to solve. You can see it's brought it down a bit. Then we'll do our quartic distortion. Adjust. Transfer. And Alt-C. You can see that's brought it down quite a bit. It's still not like perfectly flat. But what we can do, we can go to our parameter adjustment again and solve our focal length. Select adjust. And see how it's brought it back down to 25mm. Transfer our parameters. Alt-C again. And now, if we just play through our shot with spacebar, we can sort of see what our 3D points are doing. And we seem to have a pretty good solve already. There are some funny things going on in the deviation browser, so we'll just select them and we'll just see what's going on. So if we select center 2D point, and we can zoom in on it. You can see there's some sort of funky stuff going on there, so we go to F2 again. And we might just need to track some more bits in this corner. So we'll just control left click and track this section here. And that. We'll just look for some more bits that we can track here. Mud. Have to readjust it. And that. You can Alt-C to solve. And use result. You can see it's not. Let's see what's going on here. Still that same point. Alt-C. So we'll do open our parameter adjustment window again. We'll clear it and adjust. And we'll go for our distortion again, doing them one at a time. Okay, so that's brought it down quite a bit. Let's see if we can try and fix this. So we'll just make some more points. It's always a little bit trickier when you don't have any of the data and you have to make your own distortion. As long as your 2D points are good though, you should be able to fix anything within your shot. So we'll just do a focal length adjustment, then the lens distortion adjustment, and a quartic. Alt-C and solve. You can see it's pretty much bringing out. It's not absolutely perfect, but we could probably do with some. Let's stick another point here. smaller. Gauge marker track. Okay, so I think we got a pretty good solve. If we click full frame, press spacebar, we can play through our shot. We have to see if there's any strange stuff going on just by looking around. All these points are sticking quite nicely. Cool. So I think for actually tracking this shot, we're pretty much done. We've got a good solve. The distortion that we've made doesn't look too crazy. It looks pretty normal. The next thing that we can do is build our set geo from our camera track. So what we'll do, if we just save it first, I'm just going to overwrite. What I'll do, if you just right click in your object point in your point browser and add new point set, and we'll call this solve. Just select all our points and middle mouse drag and under solve. So now we've got all our working camera tracks under here. And what we'll do, we will hide those, because now what we're going to do, we're going to try and make some better set geo from point cloud. So if we press F4, this will take us into our auto tracking menu. Pretty much this is the only thing I ever use auto tracking for. I would never use it to make actual camera tracks, because it can be more hassle than it's worth, because it just puts more bad points in than good. But once you've got if you've got a good solve, you can use it in a different way. So if we go to our camera, and if you scroll down, you'll have these auto tracking settings. If you open that up, and you'll see our auto tracking settings are 30 to 60 points per frame. And it sounds like a lot, and it's really not. So what we'll do first is we'll change this to 800 to 1000, and we'll change our minimum. We'll change our search interval to 10, our minimum track length to 8, and our search area size. I tend to, whenever I'm doing something like this, I always half it. 8, 4.6, 1.5, 1.5, 2.5, and I'll change this to 1. And this will give us quite a nice dense point cloud. But we don't want to, if we do that now, if we click auto track now at the bottom, it will track all the stuff in the sky. We want to mask out the stuff in the sky because we don't want it. We only want this grass area. So if we select, we need to make sure that if you're at frame 50, it will make a mask in your center screen like this. But it will always, see how it's highlighted in red? It will always be keyframed at the first one. So always make sure you do your masks on frame 1. So if you select the red point in the middle, you'll be able to move it around. And it always starts off with 3, so you can hold Control and left click and make another one. So we get Control left click there, Control left click here. And if you select these little green dots, you'll be able to change the tangents on them. It doesn't have to be the best rotor in the world, it just has to completely cover up those areas. So now if we scrub for our timeline, obviously that's not going to work. So if we select all our points, scrub through, and if we hold Control Shift, we can sort of adjust it over. Just keep going through the timeline, holding Control Shift and adjust it over that house. Control Shift. If you hold Control Shift, you need to make sure you click on the yellow dots, otherwise it will grab a tangent. And Control Shift. Cool. If we look for our time, you can see that, but it's kind of brought all this up. So what we'll do, we'll just deselect those and just pull these points down and across. Keyframe, do the same thing. It doesn't have to be super tight, just has to sort of cover up the bits that you really don't want. Cool. So now if we scrub for our timeline, sort of, double key it there. I'll just fix that. So if we scrub for our timeline, you can see it's sort of masked out. So now we've done that. Make sure you save it first, because this can be quite heavy and might take a while. So if you click Auto at the bottom, and you'll get a primary pass and a secondary pass. I usually leave this as it is because it gives you quite good results. Then all you need to do is click Track. And it should start spraying the ground with loads of dense tracking markers. And this will probably take quite a while, so I'll just fast forward it. Cool, so that's gone through the first pass and the secondary pass. And if we scrub through our timeline, we can actually see how many points it's tracked. And it's tracked a lot more than we could manually track in a certain amount of time. So what we can do first, if we go to Python, Calc, and find badly tracked points, what this will do, this will just go through and sort of roughly check any sort of not so great points. So if we run that through, we might pick up one or two or a few. I always find that auto tracking tends to put quite a lot of bad tracks down. That's why I never do any primary camera solves with them. Only ever use it for building sort of. So if I delete it, it picked up 1 point. So if we go to our point browser now, we'll scroll all the way up to the top. We just close our solve folder, and if we select all of our auto tracks, and all your auto tracks should have a little lowercase a next to them. Now, once you've got them all selected, if you right click, modify, go down to calculation, and change it to passive, what this will do, this will calculate all the positions of these points, but won't bring into consideration the actual camera solve. So if we deselect all those with Alt left, just selecting a Alt left click in here, what we'll do, I'll just save it again. So right. So now if I press Alt C, this may take a little bit longer than last time, but now you can sort of see it's built a massive point cloud. And you can see our building there. Just about. You can sort of see it stood up. It's built all our ground there and some bits in the background. So now if we use the result, we go to F5, we can now see all of these tracking points, and they all seem to be sticking really well. You're going to get some things in the background. So what we want to do, we want to get rid of some of these ones. If you see any abnormal ones, you can just go ahead and delete them. Like something like this is picked up on that boat in the background, so we'll delete that. So if we just go for a timeline, just look for any sort of ones that haven't been picked up. Let's get rid of these ones in the background. These were just picked up because my mask wasn't very good. But if you didn't mask it all, there'd be a lot more that you'd have to delete. You also want to just keep an eye out for like oddly floating ones as well. These are all ones that are probably tracked in the background that we don't want. Stuff that's sort of tracked in the water, we don't want that. We got some. It's quite easy to pick out odd ones because, like, if you look here, you can see these 3 points here. They're kind of just not anywhere, they're just floating in nowhere, so we'll just delete those as well. And you want to get any sort of odd looking green crosses. Let's get rid of all these. So now we've done that. So if we go to F6, we can now see if you left click, it lets you rotate around, and your right click is zoom in and out, and your middle mouse roller is translate. So now we can sort of see our entire scene here. If you go view, show image planes and none, we can just hide our image plane for now. So the reason for this is we want to make some geometry for our set geo. Like in all the other previous ones, we've had scans and set geo already previously made for us. It's not going to happen all the time, so sometimes you'll have to make your own. And when you've got shots like this, you can use this sort of method to create your own. So I actually just, if you hold Alt and left click and drag, and just start selecting your points apart. Don't select the house though, because we probably don't want. Let's actually, if we just select everything up to a point, what we can do, if we go on our house here, we hold Alt, sorry, we select all that again, hold Alt, left click, Alt, left click, and Alt Shift to deselect. And now we've got all those ground points selected, we'll go back to F5. Select anything else, just F6. Left click and look around. So now we've got all our points selected. If we go to 3D models, create, and mesh from points, I always use legacy, and just create mesh. See how now this is made of, it's made a pretty rough mesh. But if we go to F5, if we select all our auto tracked points, go view, hide selected points, we can see that it's actually now created our geoforeground. So if we go to 3D model, go to point group in our object browser, 3D models and point mesh, we can just reduce our alpha on this so we can see it a little bit better. Full frame. And you see now we've got geo that works really well. See, it's sort of clipping here. So if we go to project left here, if we select our clipping plane, we can bring it all the way down. And if you wanted to make some geo for this, it's probably easier to make it in Maya, but we can make some reference geo from the points. So if we go back to F6, if we unhide all our points, because it's a fairly basic shape, what we can do is be quite selective with our points. I've selected those four. If I go 3D models, geo, create mesh from points and legacy. Now it's made a piece of geo there. I've not got any points around the back here, but I can still select that point. Control Shift, oh no, sorry, Alt Shift. Select that point. I think it's this one. We can go to Control 3D models, create mesh from points, legacy again. It's made like a triangle plane, but it's more for reference afterwards. So we can actually deselect that one. So we've already got these two selected, and if we select this one that we did before, 3D models, create mesh from points and legacy, create mesh. Now we've got an extremely basic sort of mesh for our building. So if we press F5, we can select all our auto points again. Go view, hide selected points. And see we've got a really rough building model, but we would probably model that better in Maya if we need to be. But more importantly, we've got a really good ground model here. Cool. So what we'll do, if you right click in your point browser, add new point set, and we'll call these auto. Okay. We'll just put all our auto tracks in here, just in case if anyone else needs to pick up your file, they know what's going on. So what I'll just quickly save it, 3D save project as, and it's always good to sort of version up, so I'll do version up, click OK. So now we're done with the tracking. We've created our set geo model. So now what we want to do, we want to export out our camera on our distortion nodes. So if we go 3D export project and Maya, we're exporting it for Maya, but if you're exporting it for anything else, you have all the other options here as well. And it's pretty much exactly the same. So I'll just cancel that. So if I go to camera, scroll up, we can see which our start frames are. So 3D export project, Maya, and I can see my start frames 1001. So I'll change that to 1001. And what I'll do, I can ask it to export all the 3D models as well, instead of exporting it separately. So now click on export file. And I'll just export it to the same place. house VG01 V01 cam V01. So I know that's the camera for that shot. I'll click OK and OK again. And say project successfully exported. So now I need to do is export my distortion node. So I'll go File, Export, Export Nuke LD for distortion node. And I'll click on, I'll leave this as it is and click on File Name. And I'll call it the same, House VG01 V01 Nuke LD node V01. I'll click OK. And that's exported that out. So now we're pretty much done with 3D. The last thing that we need to do is export out, or sorry, render off our undistorted plate. So if we go to the bottom left and click on Warp 4, so now Warp 4 is opened. There are other ways you can make undistorted plates and nuke, but this is just the quickest way that I do it for now. So you can check between your warp footage and preview it. So what we want to do is go down to our destination footage, click Save Footage, we'll click Browse, we'll go to the shot, I'll make a new directory in there, I'll call it UDP, and click OK. So now I'll call this house _BG01 V01 UDP for undistorted plate dot 4 hashes dot EXR and click OK. So what I'll also do, because I'm just going to be using this for reference in Maya, I'm going to scale it down by half so it's not so heavy. Then I'll click render. Now this little green frame should start turning up here, so it's signifying that it's rendering off. Cool. This might take a while, so I'll fast forward through this. Cool, so that's finished now. So if we go up to File and Exit, we're now done in 3DEqualizer. Our next step would be to go into Maya and set up our camera, and probably we'll go through and maybe clean up some of this geo and make a little bit better geo for the house. If you guys enjoyed this tutorial, hit that like button and subscribe for more like this.